Today is the 23rd of January, the year 2000. We're in the home of Wade and Vivian Hayes, and we have as our guest our grandson, Samuel Packard, who has recently returned from a 2-year mission in Mexico, that is Mexico City, or South Mexico. He'll explain that. Now, in this little conversation, we will ask a few questions to provoke the conversation. I guess the first thing I could say, or would like to say, or ask Samuel, is this. What constitutes the average bill of fare or diet that they eat in the area that you live in Mexico?
Okay. What constitutes their diet that they eat over there in Mexico? Okay, before I answer that question, I just want to, he mentioned my name when he gave the introduction here, my grandpa. And he said my name is Samuel Packard. I just want to say it's Samuel Wade Packard.
Thank you.
I want that to go on record. That middle name is a good name. But what the Mexicans eat, there's a little bit difference between what the missionaries eat and what the Mexicans eat. Now, what the Mexicans eat, their diet is high fat, very low vegetables, hardly any vegetables. Mostly.
Lots of meat, you mean?
Lots and lots and lots of meat. In fact, they're pretty excited about eating tacos. Now, when we think of tacos, what do you think about? You think about
lettuce, tomatoes,
and
and that little...
And a little bit of Taco Bell. Their tacos, you take away the lettuce, tomatoes, and onions, anything that's green and good for you. And you put just meat on there and cheese. You put cheese on it, a lot of cheese, white cheese. And their meat's not the same. Their meat, they call it tacos al pastor. Tacos, I don't know, pastor, it's like shepherd, I think. But they have a pole, a little bitty pole, like a steak. And in the middle of the steak, they'll lay down a layer of meat on the steak. Push it down to the bottom of the steak, and they'll put a layer of fat on top of it.
What kind of fat? Butter?
I think it's pig fat.
Okay, suet, so to speak. That's fat, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Lard.
Now the meat is beef.
Okay.
Usually. Now they say sometimes it's horse meat, sometimes they say it's dog meat. But lamb, whatever. But supposedly, it's supposed to be beef. But they get, it depends how cheap the tacos are. And so there's beef, fat, onions, and then they go another layer, beef, fat, onions, beef, fat, onions, beef, fat, onions. And they layer it up, stack 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 it up, until you get to the very top of the steak. Yeah, once you've already filled up the steak full of beef, fat, and onions, they'll put on top of it a pineapple or more fat. I think that's a lot of fat. And then they rotate it around a flame. The steak and the meat, you can rotate it because it's on a steak, and they rotate it, and they cook it. And as they cook it, they'll cut off a layer of it, and they'll stick in a taco, and that's their tacos. It's not like Taco Bell. So, a lot of their food's like that. That's their luxury. If they want to go out to eat, they'll eat that.
where do they have the fire?
It's outside, and the food's not too good because there's a lot of dust in Mexico. And so you're driving in the street and the dust goes up, it gets on top of the meat, fat I add, and onions. And it's not too clean. So we were advised not to eat it out in the street. We hardly ever did. So that's why I didn't get too fat. I got a little chunky, but that's okay.
Fat?
Most people are fat, and they blame it on the tortilla. They say it's the corn that makes them fat, which I don't know how much truth it has to it, but I always told them it's what's in between.
Is that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
No, it's for dinner.
That's the evening meal.
They eat a lot of yogurt, a whole lot of dairy products.
Oh, you mean
for breakfast?
Unsweetened yogurt?
Sweetened yogurt.
Sweetened. Kind we make here.
Yeah, it's just the same. They buy it from the store. It's
okay.
The base tastes exactly the same, almost. But they eat a lot more of it.
And bread?
They don't eat much bread. They eat more tortillas.
Now, how about vegetables and salads? You say they don't eat much of that?
They don't eat much of it. Most people don't like it, so they don't eat it. They eat a lot of meat. It's real grassy, the food. And they eat stuff that's called, it's pig skin. They eat pig skin. They eat a lot of pig skin, eat a lot of fat. They call them little pieces of meat, which is pig skin with the fat on it, and really fattening.
How about bread?
Not much bread.
Not much bread.
They do eat bread with some soups, but it's not as common as the tortilla.
Okay. How does that reflect in health? Do they have generally good health, or they have allergies? Do they have arthritis and metabolic degenerative diseases like we have here?
They're sick. A lot of it's because some of the poor people don't have enough money to buy good food, and you can see it, and you can see the difference between the rich people and the poor people a lot of times just by how their body is.
Oh.
Because they look bad. Now their teeth are straight for some reason. I don't know why. There are hardly any dental problems. There's not hardly.
How about sweets? Do they eat a lot of sweets? Sugar products, cake, pie, candies, jam, jellies.
I don't think they eat a whole lot of sweets.
Okay.
I don't think they eat a whole lot. Now,
Soft drinks.
Soft drinks, now they do drink a lot of soft drinks.
Which is Coca-Cola?
They drink lots of Coca-Cola.
Okay.
A whole bunch.
Now you mentioned that you don't eat precisely the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
In a general way, what does the missionaries bill of fare? What do they
Now,
eat?
they send a paper out what the missionaries should eat, and they give us a few more vegetables, even though a lot of missionaries don't like them. And a lot of they don't like it. They didn't eat it growing up eating vegetables. But they gave us some vegetables, a lot of rice, beans.
White rice.
And we ate at the same place every day. Almost every day, the same place, same time.
3 times? All 3 times?
Once in the morning, once in the afternoon. That's it.
2 meals constitutes a day's meal.
A day. Eat 2 times a day. Eat in the morning around 10, and then eat around 3, and then you're done. You can't afford to eat at night. Now, sometimes they invite us for stuff. It doesn't count. We make good. I'm not for sure exactly how much. My whole mission, I never was in charge of the money because I didn't want to mess with it. And all the other my companions liked it, so I let them have fun doing something I didn't like doing anyway.
What sleeping facilities and conveniences and flushing toilets and whatever?
The houses, I learned the houses here in the United States are a lot more nice. But you get used to it real fast. My first 4 months in the mission, I took a bath out of a bucket. And my last 4 months of the mission, I took a bath out of a bucket. Sponge baths. But they have showers. Most of the time, if you're outside of Mexico City, you're going to have cold water. There's no hot water. If you're in Mexico City, it gets cold there, so most people buy heaters. There were some places where it literally came out boiling, and I wasn't too excited about taking a bath in that water. But it's the best they have. Most of the places it comes out clear, but you can't drink it.
There is much poorer.
Yeah.
They're more level.
Depends where you are, but in the average, much more poor. If you go dirt roads, I was teaching Charlotte on the floor. I'd sit down on the floor and I'd teach him discussions. Charlotte means discussions, by the way. I get that.
Okay, thank you.
I would clarify that one. When I changed from my first area to second area, I went to a place that was they had more money. And I saw ceiling fans. I saw light bulbs. Well, they all had light bulbs, but I saw a floor made out of dirt, and it surprised me. And they called me Elder Wow the first 2 days because I was, wow, a ceiling fan. And I thought, wow.
One with Havens, the one we teach, home teaching, to ask you how did you climatize with their environment versus your American environment? How did you and with their lifestyle? Was there any distinct differences? The human nature, I guess, is similar, but still in all, there's a
little difference.
And it's noticeable, and how could you define the difference?
Okay, the difference between the people or between the environment?
Yeah, just...
Okay, I'll answer the people first. The people over there, I think, now of course you got I'm looking through the eyes of a missionary. So I'm going to judge through the eyes of a missionary. So take that into account.
Okay.
What I saw as a missionary, the people are happier, and they're a lot more humble. And it's really easy to get along with almost anybody. Now, part of that's because I'm a missionary, and you got the smile, you got the spirit with you, got the name tag that all helps you out. But it was really easy to get along with everybody. And then you can feel real comfortable. You don't have to ever worry about what people think about you. I never worried much about what people thought about me. Too sociable, not sociable enough. I don't know, but the things that people worry about for some reason. You just have fun being with the people and you talk to them. And it made it a lot easier. They laugh a lot, they like jokes. Sometimes their jokes are a little bit more harsh. Yeah. They call each other fatty. Around here, if you call your wife fat, they're gonna pull out a kitchen knife on you.
Yeah.
But there they call each other fatty. They call my little fat. That's what the literal translation is, my little.
Well, is it pillow talk, or you talk about the weather, you talk about life in general, or philosophy, or religion, or what?
It's pillow talk. Most of the talk, you don't philosophize. You don't talk deep much with the people.
Is it because of their educational background, or because of their custom?
I think that might be
culture?
it. I think that might be it. But it's pillow talk, and it's a lot of fun. And you enjoy being around it. You enjoy the conversation. It's not a real intellectual conversation, usually. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Appreciate your comments there. Okay. Now, let's go into missionary work and your experiences there as it relates to, let's use the word retention. In the church today, our prophet wants us all to try to retain people and to regain people and to have a retention program. When you bring people into the church, that's always been a problem. Back in 60 years ago, we would have 10, 20%, maybe 30% retention, and they wanted to know about the 70%. Now, what kind of a retention program do you have down there you felt like was effective once you got them in the church?
Okay.
Retention.
First of all, our president, I think, I had the same president for my 2 years, which is a good benefit. I never have to look at another president and see there are two different ways of doing things. He followed the prophet, and he taught us to follow the prophet. He talked about retention, reactivation, and conversion. He talked about those three all the time.
Wait, say that again. Retention,
reactivation, and conversion.
Conversion. Well, conversion would come first, wouldn't it? Or it comes along anyway.
He would actually put retention before conversion. He made a page, like a regular piece of paper, and he'd put all the 5 slots of people to convert, 5 slots of people to reactivate, and 5 slots of people to retain.
Well, he was inspired.
He was inspired, and he did a real good job at it. And he passed it around. All the bishops started using this page to make plans every week on how they're going to fulfill these 3 areas. And he would put retention first, to make all the bishops talk first about retention, because everyone has a tendency. They have a tendency inside to want to baptize a lot. Everyone wants to baptize a lot. For something about it's been implanted in their heads. It's better. They almost feel like it's better to baptize 5 and reactivate 3 instead of baptize 3 and reactivate. Sorry, it's almost better to baptize 5 and retain 3 than it is to baptize 3 and retain 3. For some reason they think that, and it's not true. So our program was basically just follow the prophet, exactly what it says, and just do what he's taught us. And don't try to do something new. He didn't try to do anything new. He focused on the mission, the stake mission, and he focused on trying to get the missionaries to have a family as a friend. How do you call that? A brotherlyhood family?
Yeah.
A family of brotherlyhood. And
you mean a fellowship and family?
That's it, fellowship and family. Some of these words have words in Spanish. I didn't learn them. So anyway,
well, in other words, if you had you were trying to bring a couple or family into the church, you would want a fellowship and member family to fellowship them before baptism, during, and after.
Yep, before, which is just the same thing the prophet said. It's nothing new. But the prophet said it, and he said it for a good reason, because God told him, so we better do it. And so we focused on that. And sometimes we didn't get a family to help them out before they got baptized. But once they did, we'd do everything we could to make sure they got their charters, their discussions for the new members. And we would do everything we could to get members to do it for them. We do everything we could to help them get a calling. There's another piece of paper. The church provides this paper called, it's like a checking off list. I don't know what it's called in English. Is you check off things like they got a calling, they're doing their family home evening. It's a checklist. Have you seen it? It's a checklist.
Do they have a job in the church?
Yeah.
Do they have, are they assigned a job? And did they bear the testimony or whatever?
That's it. That's what it is. I don't know what it's called. It's called Lista de Verificación in English and Spanish.
Okay.
But we put a lot of focus on that. And the president taught the missionaries how to use these little pages, and he taught the missionaries to teach the bishops. And the bishops started using it and trying to make them have callings, and it worked out really well.
So you retain a good percent of your
I think we were the highest.
Over a period of 2 years or 1 year, at least for a year.
Most of my baptisms, our mission was one of the highest retaining missions in all of Mexico.
Serious?
They were no.
Inspired. Said, you might start them out on.
Now, this is a good question because I don't know that well. I'm almost in favor. The bigger, the better.
Good statement.
The bigger.
They had a hyper-retention down there too. I just heard that. I didn't know if you involved that. We could talk to me and important issues that have to do with missionary work. And I appreciate your retort and response, Samuel Wade.
Samuel Wade.
Modulate now into something else. When I vague as it was on the little micro tape of your talk on your homecoming talk, and then when you got the story about Rebecca, that soul, I shed tears, and that she was in the Sunday school class meeting and got about the word Rebecca. Remember a missionary, you know. And so she had him call me, and he confirmed that he was emotional, and he's not turned to being emotional in Sunday school class as a teacher. But she mentioned that, and that impressed him in front of all those Sunday school class members. His true feelings, that he knew that a punchline or the message that you gave and shared, you were sure the one about Rebecca. You held it till the last. And I have what I now, if you don't here, and just restate this, to me, it church news are the ensign. What your story? We have in there that are very and faith promoting you. So, and this interview was that we have room here.
Okay.
And that microphone to you there, and let you share, if you will. And I'll say ahead of time that all related, or anyone who hears this, will be affected and influenced for good from the story. Telephone, Mother.
Well,
okay.
I was speaking kind of fast Sunday because I was kind of nervous, and I was still thinking the Mexicans speak a lot faster. But I'm going to give the full account. I was also a little rushed for time. The full account. It all began. I want you to know how I met her. I didn't mention this. I was in a stake mission meeting. And when I spoke a little bit, I got to give a little class, and then so the president spoke, and then someone else spoke, and we finished off, and they called on Rebecca a lady called Rebecca to give a prayer. In her prayer, she began to cry. And I haven't seen in my whole life, before the mission, I've seen one person cry in a prayer. One person in public crying a prayer. And so I decided, and it was also speaking about the missionary work too, so there's something about missionary work. So I decided I'm going to get to know Rebecca. And that's how I began when I got to know Rebecca. I had a good friend that knew her really, really, really well and worked with her real tight. And I found out a whole lot about Rebecca. It all started off when Rebecca, she was really sad and depressed. Her life, she thought, was ruined. She didn't have a good marriage. Her husband beats her, and that's not an understatement. Everything was going bad. She lives in Acapulco, which is really hot. Her economic situation was really bad. She decided she wanted to kill herself. She was that depressed about life that she decided to take her own life away. Her mom was listening to some discussions from the missionaries, and she liked the way it made her feel. And so...
Oh, you mean missionaries contacted her door to door?
No. Missionaries contacted Rebecca's mom.
That's what it says.
Oh, yeah.
Door to door.
I think it was door to door. I'm not for sure about that one, but I think it was. I'd give it about 80% sure that there was a contact. So they talked to her mom, She liked the way it felt, and Rebecca told her mom, "Mom, I'm going to kill myself." Mom said, "No, don't do it. Listen, before you do it, talk to these Mormon pastors." She doesn't know. She says Mormon pastors. "And I want you to come." Oh, and Rebecca didn't want to. No, I don't want to talk to any religion. That doesn't do anything. And then she said, "Well, just come to church with me." Finally, she talked to her mom, talked to Rebecca into going to church.
Now, her mother was not a member
She's not a member
at that point in time.
She just doesn't want Rebecca to kill herself. And so she tricked Rebecca. She invited Rebecca to her house before they went to church, and she also invited the missionaries to come to her house. So Rebecca went to her mom's house, and she found 2 missionaries there. And the missionaries, talking to her, this, that, and the other, got all excited, and they decided, after all was said and done, she decided to go to church. Her life began to change when she stepped in that church. She felt good. She felt the Spirit. Well, to make a long story short, she began to listen to the charlas, the discussions. She got excited. She listened. She found out that there's a purpose in life. It's to better yourself and be happy. And she got baptized. But the story doesn't end there. This lady became one of the highest referring members in all of the state of Acapulco. It's a big state because it's about to divide. She would go with the missionaries. She was so excited about the missionary work. She would go out with the missionaries. Imagine the change that happened to her. She would go out with the missionaries. She would find a cardboard name tag. She'd write Sister Rebecca on the name tag. She would put it on her blouse. She would wear it with pride, walking up and down the streets in the hills in Acapulco with an ensign in her hand. She would go out with the missionaries every other day. And the missionaries, she was so good at contacting people in the street and knocking doors that the missionaries almost felt intimidated to go with her because she was better than they were. She was good. And she would go right up to people with an ensign in her hand. She says, "Do you know we have a prophet today?"
Direct approach.
Direct. And people would get kind of scared. No. Well, listen, you need to listen to these 2 missionaries right here. I did. It changed my life. It saved my life. And she could really say that with power because it really did save her life. We're talking the physical and spiritual sense here. Well, anyway, so she's really active, and the missionaries loved her because they baptized a lot of people thanks to Rebecca. It started off just as one poor soul that was lost, and now she's saving others, and that interesting. One day, now the punchline of the story, she was in a stake conference, and she saw, I got time, right? She was in a stake conference, and she saw one of her old friends when she was a little kid. She went up to him. She goes, "Jim." I don't know his name, so I'm going to just call him Jim. "Jim, how you doing? It's been a long time. I haven't seen you in so long." "Oh, good, Rebecca. How you doing?" They were friends ever since they were little bitty kids. And then Rebecca says, "I didn't know you remember. I can't believe you remember." And he said, "Oh, yeah." And then Jim says, "Rebecca, how long have you been a member?" "Well, I've been a member for about a year now. And I love it. It's wonderful. Don't you just feel so good?" And Rebecca said, "Well, Jim, how long have you been a member?" And Jim kind of gets sad. He said, "Well, I've been a member all my life." At that moment, Rebecca, her social smiley face now shrunk to a more serious tone, and she said, she looked him straight in the eyes. In her eyes, a tear began to roll down her eyes. And she said something that I'm sure shook Jim's soul. She said, "And why didn't you tell me?" She said, "Why didn't you tell me?" She said, "If you would have told me, I would have accepted." She said, "If you would have told me, I could have been a missionary." That's her dream, to be a missionary. She said, "If you would have told me, I could have been sealed in the temple with a good husband. But now I can't." She said, "Now I can't because I didn't know." And what makes me worry about a story like that, I'm sure that made Jim think twice about what he's going to start referring more of his friends. Because it's just an invitation. And we don't know who's going to accept. I'm sure more people accept than we think they will. Seen it happen. There's a lot of the stories. I have more stories that are pretty similar, but Rebecca's the most powerful one. But how many people, we're all going to die one day, and we're going to be on the other side. And they're going to see the effects of the gospel. They're going to see how much we've changed in life thanks to the gospel. They're going to find out it's true. Most of them will find out that this is the true gospel before Jesus Christ comes out. And they're going to ask us, why didn't you tell me? If they were the true followers of Christ, they'll ask. We just got to give everyone the opportunity. And the ones that are ready, they'll accept. They will accept, because it's true. We don't have to convince them anything. But that's that story about...
Okay, I appreciate it as heretofore stated. I will turn it over now, and then we'll talk about some other matters. I think we have... however, maybe I could ask a question here. What do you think is probably one of the best door-to-door approaches? I mean, whenever you go meet an outright stranger, or even a friend that is a non-member, and you want to introduce them to the subject of religion, which may lead to a teaching situation. What is a typical good approach that you can use to break right into the make a tackle, I call it? There's a difference in piling on, making a tackle, and being a spectator. If you make a tackle in missionary work, you literally invite them, or you approach the subject in a serious way about the church, make an invitation of some nature. And if you pile on, you just friendship people that are interested. If you're a spectator, you don't do anything. You watch, like in the football.
You watch it all happen.
So how can you make a tackle? The best way to make a tackle.
I'm a believer in watching people and reading people. So, if the person needs, has a real concern.
If they what?
If they have a real concern about something, if they're worried about something, about going to the church, and that means you're going to have to sit with them, invite the Spirit, do something that makes them feel the Spirit, help them recognize the Spirit, and then invite them. Now, a lot of people, when you think about it, if you want to invite someone to go to the movies, you're not going to sit down and pray about it and talk about the benefits and the causes and effects of going and watching a movie, because it's fun. So for a lot of people, if they're already ready to go to church, all they need is just a shove. So I just give them a good smile and say, come on, why don't you want to go to church? Let's just go. Just be real bold about it, like it's no big deal.
You pick that up by discernment, you say, partially?
Yeah, you have to do it that way. Because if I usually do it, first start off like that. Well, you haven't gone to church yet? Why not? It's the best place you can go to. And then they just kind of look at you funny because you're kind of bold. And you say, well, I go every Sunday. It's not that bad. And I like it, so come on, let's go. But if they kind of start, you can look in their face. A lot of people like that. They need that. They kind of need that little shove, a little excitement, a little push, and it helps them a bunch. I like doing it. It's kind of fun. But if they start getting turned off a little bit, you can see it fast, and then I know how to react.
You change the subject.
I'll just change my method of attack. I change it, and I start talking about the benefits, and I get more of a serious tone. And it also tells me later on, a lot of times when I see where the problem is, I don't have to fix it right then. Does that make sense? I don't have to fix it right then. I can look at it and I see it once I know what it is, and I decide how I'm going to try to resolve that concern or that problem later on. But in the moment, sometimes I just talk to them and I try to find out what they need to help them go to church. I don't know if this is being real clear.
That's good. I appreciate that. Let me see.
The thing is that we're going, get them in the church.
Get it.
Here we're on the other side, Samuel Wade, still the 23rd of January, year 2000. Home of Wade and Vivian Hayes, and we're talking with Samuel Wade Packard. The first question, I think, would be an easy one. Samuel, what is your favorite scripture and why?
I guess that's hard. That's a good question.
Let's use one of your favorite scriptures.
Well, the one that comes to mind right now would have to be, it says the worth of the souls is great in the sight of the Lord. In Doctrine and Covenants, that one.
Okay, that has to do with the value of souls.
Uh-huh.
Okay, now let me ask you another question here, changing stations, as Bernie would say. What would you call, how could you formulate a creed that you live by? If you do have a creed, or a slogan, or a way of life that summarize the way you approach life.
Okay.
George Albert Smith, the prophet, had a creed, and he listed all those items. That,
it's like a slogan.
Yeah.
My way of, okay, I wonder if this will work good. You hear that scripture that says, Adam fell that man might be, men are that they might have joy. Well, that's half of my little slogan, because I think we are here to have joy. But there is something else too, which brings joy. I believe my purpose, my goal in life, in this life. Now the major goals have exaltation, but my goal is, one, to fulfill the measurement of my creation. Is that good? Does that sound good?
Good.
That's number one. Number two, to live in a full and abundant life. Now, there are people, you can see people that are go-getters, and they're real, they complete everything, and they're real smart.
Dot every I, cross every T.
Every one of those, and that's good. And then for some reason, it looks like there's other people at the other end of the spectrum that are real lovey-dovey. They're really fun to be around. You just love them to death, but they're not that responsible. And it seems like the responsible people are more dry, or they're not as fun to be around. And the more fun people to be around, they don't do the right thing, or as much. They don't fulfill all their assignments. So my goal is to have them both.
Wonderful. I like that. That's splendid.
It's kind of hard, but I like it.
Okay, now let me ask you a question that I have never asked anyone in life in an interview in my 84 plus years. I've never asked anybody this question. I thought of it. And I'll set the stage for the question by telling you what you already know well. In the Book of Mormon, the Savior appeared to the Nephites after his resurrection. And he selected 12 disciples. Whether they were apostles or not, I don't know. It could have been. In all probability, they were his. We don't know their names particularly. However, in his visit to these 2,500 members, survivors, he set up his church. And in setting up his church and selecting his disciples, he asked 12 disciples what would be their greatest wish or their aspiration in life, so to speak, that he was ready to grant that wish to them as a reward or bonus for a good, virtuous life that they apparently lived up to that point in time. And 9 of the Nephites answered that they would like to quickly come into his presence after their lifespan had been utilized. And he gave them a promise that at the age of 72, plus or minus, I'm sure, in a few days, they would have that reward. And 3 of the Nephites wouldn't divulge what their greatest wish was. They were a little embarrassed about it, not knowing the value of their answer. And they were promised because they were caught up They were promised because they wanted to stay and bring souls into God, which is the ultimate. And the aspiration of the human soul is to bring souls to God, directly or indirectly, or whatever. Now, if the Savior were to ask you, or he were to ask me, I don't know what I would say. But if you can give some kind of an answer, if the Savior were to interview you, Samuel, and ask you that question, what would you like? What do you desire in your heart as of currently, right now? How would you answer that?
Well, I guess I can see what they all wanted to be in his presence. The disciples, the 9. Now, I think that part of being in his presence is getting to work. One of the things that gives me the most joy, and that maybe that might be my greatest desire, is to really help somebody, help someone that you know and that you care about, base their lives in principles of the gospel. Make them draw closer to God. Why? The principles of the gospel is not just good things that make you feel good. They're principles that help you live a better life and also to help you help other people. The principle about obedience is not just something good to be obedient. It's essential. You have to be obedient if you want to be like God, which is everything, which is all powerful. So if I can help someone base their lives in those principles, they'll not only be happier, but they will be able and capable of doing more good, which in turn, they'll begin to do the same thing. So one of my goals in life, and this is part of fulfilling the measure of my creation, that kind of thing, is help every man that I meet. And I get this a lot from my patriarchal blessing. Every man that I meet, help him establish the principles of the gospel in his life and to know Christ better. And I have to find some way to do it. And when I do it, when I help someone do it, there are things like having confidence in yourself, having faith, the principles. When I do it, I feel good. When someone does it to me, and they've done it to me, you've done it to me, Grandpa. My dad's done it to me. I didn't even know it. Johnny Ross was doing it to me ever since I was a little kid. And it's fun to do it. You feel good. It's fun.
On either side of this?
Both sides.
North and South Pole?
I felt good. I didn't know they were doing it to me. But now as a missionary, I begin to see it. And you start doing it with your companions. How can I make this man a stronger man? How can, and it gives more purpose in life. Your prayers become more meaningful. You begin to find a way, well, how can I help him? And as you begin to forget yourself, you begin to find yourself.
I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I think you're saying that you would like to be like the 9, but also like the 3, a combination or a compromise between the two extremes.
I think they're almost the same. But
Great.
I think they kind of go together. If you want to go in the presence of God, you got to do what the 3 want to do.
Okay, wonderful. I won't belabor the point, but I appreciate your comments. It's a very delicate thing to answer. I wouldn't know how to answer it myself.
Me neither. It's
okay.
Ask me instead of Jesus Christ.
All right. Now, let's go down to some basic questions. You didn't hear Jeff Chilton speak the week before you came. Gave your report. Jeff Chilton spoke on Are Mormons Christians? But how would you define a Christian? If, not what Webster would say, but how would you define it if you had backed in the corner? What is a Christian?
A true Christian.
Okay.
Well, I guess a true Christian would be someone that takes the name of Christ upon themselves. In fact, it's Christian, Christ. And to be able to walk around with his name of Christ on like you'd put on your forehead. And if you do anything bad, do anything wrong, if whatever you did, you didn't feel embarrassed about having the name of Christ on your forehead, then you could be a real Christian. If you didn't have to hide something that you did, then you could be a Christian. It's basically the same same promise we make when we get baptized. Take the name of Christ and put it over ourselves.
Wonderful. Now, how would you define the word love? Have you a private definition of it, or do you think it's general? Or
I haven't thought of a good definition for love.
Okay.
But I can try to think of one real quick.
All right.
I guess love, it's sacrifice, it's service, it's charity. It's a lot of those things that they teach us. They're all intertwinable. I think love is when you begin to feel what other people feel, and you begin to look what's best for them, and you try to find a way to help them.
Okay, how would you define the word virtue? That's a very precious word. It's mentioned in the scriptures. If there's anything virtuous, lovely, of good report, we seek after these things. And in the Doctrine and Covenants, 121st section, the Lord says, let virtue garnish thy thoughts unceasingly. And he makes a great promise, as you can read in the 121st section. But how would you define virtue?
I don't know.
That's a hard one.
I don't know. I never thought about what virtue or virtue?
Virtue.
I never knew what it meant.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to study into it.
Okay, we'll go to the next question. If you were explaining to a non-member what you think heaven is like, most people think they will literally play on a harp, or they will gaze upon deity forever and for all eternity. But how would you explain the reality of what might be as a state of heaven in a practical terms? What would you call heaven?
Can I answer that with a story? I have time, right?
Yes, sir.
I'll try to make it quick. There once was a man. He died, and he went to a place as beautiful as in the clouds, and he realized that every desire that he had, he would get. He would get whatever he wanted. And he was all by himself, and he was in the clouds, and he had this big, nice, soft chair, and he thought, man, I would love a big screen TV. And all of a sudden, ahí está. There it was. And he just watched TV for about 2 months. And he got kind of tired of it, so he said, maybe a Nintendo with it. And so he got a Nintendo. And that lasted him a good 4 months. And he thought, no, I want a big bottle of root beer float. Huge. Big. And he got one. And as time went by, 2 years went by, 3 years went by, 4 years, 5 years went by, and everything he wanted, he got. And after a while, he had everything he wanted, and then he still got tired of it. And so he said, you know, God, I'll tell you what. My desire now is to go to hell to see what it's like, because I can't stand being here. And you know what he heard? He heard a voice from, the first time he had ever heard a voice. He heard a voice from heaven that said, where do you think you are?
Where do you think you are? That's good.
So I think
that's a pretty good description.
I think that sometimes heaven is not necessarily we get everything we want. It's a place where you work hard. It's a place you can make it almost your home, a heavenly home. You can almost make it here on earth. It's a place where, I don't know, a lot of work. I think there's a lot of work. And
going on.
It's going on. It's a lively place.
You think your mother Sarah is busy or real busy?
Real busy. I think she's super busy. About 5 times as busy as we are. The closest to heaven, the closest place I've ever, it's like a mission. I think life was more like heaven when I was on a mission than it is right now, because I was working so hard and you get lost in the work. And I think that's what heaven's more like than that.
I appreciate your comment very much. Okay, let's talk about this. Whenever I finished high school in Vidor in 1935, we had an ex-mayor from Beaumont come out and speak at our commencement exercises. And he told us, gave us some counsel. He said, now I have been an insurance man, I've been this, I've been that. I was mayor a while. He said, I want to give all of you high school graduates a little counsel. And I think it's practical. Says you may change jobs, professions, means of livelihood in your life. But if you will always have this common denominator, you'll be a success. And that is, do your very best at whatever you do, even though you may change professions or vocations. And I believe that. And Grandpa has had many jobs, but I've usually done my very best, and I've never felt a failure. So and I've always worked with my hands, not necessarily, with a white-collar job. But I feel like I pay tribute to that counsel I received. Now, in your plans for the future, what do you aspire to do in the way of a vocation or a profession?
I've thought about it a lot. I think right now I'm leaning more to being a lawyer than any other.
Okay. Well, that's a good answer. Secondarily, would you pick on another choice?
That's a tough decision. Probably a doctor, and third would be a teacher.
Okay, that's good. Now let me ask, we don't tutor on tutor in a boastful way. We can share with our loved ones some successes we have had if it has the right motive. President Heber J. Grant was one to teach by example, and he would elaborate on his successes in a way. Now, as you served in the mission, I know we have a senior companion, district leader, group leaders, and whatever, assistant to the president. Did you hold any positions of leadership? And this is, you can give this, I will accept it in the right spirit, that is not a boastful statement, but what jobs or positions of leadership did you hold in your 2-year mission?
I was junior companion for about 10 months.
Okay.
And I wasn't too worried about it. I was happy. I mean, at first I wanted to be senior companion, but everyone does at first. And then I decided it's not that big of a deal. Never wanted to be anything else but a senior companion with a greenie. That's all I wanted, my whole mission. And I never got it. I was junior companion for 10 months. And then they moved me up to zone leader right off the bat, from junior companion to zone leader. Kind of felt I'm a little bit like it was too fast. But it took me a month to get over it.
Battlefield promotion.
Fast. It didn't give me much time to prepare. But I got over it in a month. And I started working real hard. Had a lot of fun. Then I was there for about 4 months as a zone leader. And then they moved me up to, I don't want to say it's up, but they changed my job, and I was assistant for 6.5 months. And I worked there for the president, which was a great blessing.
In the office?
Mm-hmm.
You did have to visit around.
Yeah, I didn't have an area. I blanked. I didn't baptize for 6.5 months. It was a big sacrifice because I wanted to baptize.
Okay.
But I didn't have an area. All we did was go with the missionaries for a couple of days, and we go to another couple of missionaries, another couple of missionaries. After that, I went back to being a zone leader, but this time with more understanding, more knowledge.
You got to teach the discussions then.
I did teach discussions as the whole mission, but I didn't get to see the fruits of what I did.
Of your labor.
Of my labors. I would work for a couple of days, and then I'd leave, go to another area, work for a couple of days, try to get the missionaries excited, help them get excited about the work, and then help them in some areas that they need help, and then move on. Little in spurts with a bunch of missionaries. Really interesting. It was a good. I liked it.
Okay, I appreciate that. And now, I asked you when you first came back from your mission that Sunday, and I saw you at Bernie's, but very briefly I asked you a very personal question. You said, I will talk to you at your home. If you recall what I asked you, I said, during your 2-year mission, you had probably some ups and downs or discouragements or some high points. And let's just take a typical low period that you had and was discouragement or despondency or whatever. How did you pull out of it, and what was the technique you used as a formula that you utilize to pull out of the discouragement as quickly as possible?
As quickly as possible. Number one, I would laugh at myself. I try to find a way to bring humor into your life. And a lot of it's laughing at yourself. If you mess up, instead of getting all sad, I messed up, you want to laugh, and I can't believe I did that. And then laugh at yourself. Hey, can you believe I just did that? That's just terrible. And then it helps a whole bunch.
You got it from Grandma.
Did I?
Partly.
Grandma taught me that one. Another one that helps is prayer. A lot of good prayer. And another one is working hard. Get to work.
Yeah.
If there's a problem and it's bad,
All right.
okay, we're doing good. If there's a problem and you can do something about it, we'll do it. And quit worrying about it. This is from one of the prophets, by the way.
Okay.
If there's a problem and you can't do anything about it, don't worry about it, because you can't do anything anyway. Just go on.
Good philosophy. Okay, now, I'll ask you the one I indicated before is in courtship, dating, pre-marriage, all normal boys and girls in the church, it's very normal to date and to anticipate marriage in the future. And then when it comes down to your decisions and your choices for a companion, an eternal companion, then you think very seriously about it. And how much of that decision could you think would be wise to base it upon picking them out with your head versus picking them out with your heart? You know, some people believe in the heart decision so much that they think this was made in heaven. You know, this marriage was made in heaven, and it was foreordained to be eternal union with grace, nothing but with love. And then they find out later that, you know, it get down to the raw living, that it's not exactly that way. At least they thought so. Now, how much do you feel like that wise head selection should enter into the decision?
Okay, I put in 3 areas.
Okay, 3 areas.
Head, heart, hormones. That's the way I put it. Those are the 3.
They all start with an H.
They all start with an H. And I get this from people that, this is not Samuel Packard's philosophy, this is...
That's the first time I've heard it.
But the head, you should always begin with the head. It's probably the most important. I think it's in that order, head, heart, hormones. Your head, before you even start the relationship, you got to make a wise decision. Who are you going to start it with? Who are you going to try it out with? It's like when you drive test a car, you don't test drive all the cars. You pick first which one is, which is really important. Second, your heart. Now, when I say heart, I'm talking about you should feel like you want to be with that person all the time. You feel like I love my family, and you should have that kind of love with the person. Now, of course, it's not developed completely. It's a new relationship, so it's not going to be that great. But you should have that kind of love for them. You should love to be around them, talk to them, sit there and have a nice conversation. They should be your best friend. Hormones, you should feel physically attracted to the person. So much so that the first thing you want to do in the morning is, the thing you want to do at nighttime is kiss your girlfriend. When you wake up in the morning, the first thing you want to do is, always like an alcoholic.
Have another drink.
Have another drink, but
have another hormone kiss.
Another hormone kiss. You should want to be physically attracted to the person. If you're not physically attracted to him, then you shouldn't. I don't think you should either. And so, but it's in that order. Hormones is the bottom one. The heart, I think it's in the middle, and the head, well, that's where it all starts out. Now, a lot of them are interchangeable because you can feel good around the person when you're around them, and then when you leave, you feel uncertain. Well, that's a big warning. That's where your head's saying, hey, it's not going to work out. Of course, there'll always be doubts and stuff like that, but
I can say this, quick like, I don't think I'll change my opinion, but this is the wisest response I've ever had from a young person in terms of decision making, and we will pass it on. And I hope. Anyway, now I'm going to turn the tape. I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to turn it to Grandma. She might want to ask you a few things, or you might want to just ad lib about anything about your mission, about life, or as a favorite grandson. So you come over here and sit on the stool, and I leave it on. It's still running, but the way you turn it off is you pull it down. It says on and off, so it's on.
Okay, it's Grandma entering the conversation. You said to Wade about the people down there seem to be happier than they are here. Why do you think they are?
It's a good question. I think it's all in being humble. I think that's the thing that makes them a little bit more happy.
They're not lifted up in pride.
And if you really, what does pride do? And there's a lot of people wrote that speech about, I don't know who wrote it. Who was the person that wrote that? Pride, the universal sin.
I don't know.
But it's one of the prophets. And pride has a lot of effects. So the people don't have to worry about being self-conscious. They don't have to worry about messing up. They don't have to worry about what people think about them, which also, in turn, takes away the fear of a lot of things, because they don't have to worry about messing up, because it doesn't matter what everyone else thinks. So they...
Those are Taft Benson.
You know, those are Taft Benson? That's what it was. And so they're a lot more humble. A lot of it's because they were compelled to be a little bit more humble. And a lot of it is because they're the chosen people. They're one of the tribes of Israel. And I think a lot of that helps them be more happy.
Pride doesn't make people happy. That's right. Okay, I was going to ask you about the values that you, well, let me see. I wanted to ask you, what thing or things did you learn on your mission that will change the direction of your life throughout your life?
I think one of the things I learned what faith was. I learned what being humble. I studied a whole lot about humility. I learned about prayer, how to pray efficiently, not just talk, not just send an email note, but how to pray. I also learned about the Spirit, how the Spirit works. And I also learned what I talked a little bit with Grandpa, is the worth of a soul. And our job to help find their worth. Because a lot of people don't know what it is. They don't know what they can do. Their limit is their own view about themselves. And so you got to do is just change their view. And I think those are the biggest things, some of the biggest things I learned on mission. And I know it's going to change my life. I know I have a better view about faith, and faith is a big thing. It's nice. It's a 4-letter word, but it's got in Spanish it's a 2-letter word, but it's got a huge meaning behind it.
That's good. It makes you think about, I think you mentioned it in your talk, when people realize who they really are, that they're a child of God, that their self-image changed, and their life has more purpose than, it's like the Lion King, that we've got to get back to realizing who we are and how important our time is. Let's see. Are there any sister missionaries down there?
Yeah, there are some. There's not many. There's about 8 in the whole mission. We have 220-something missionaries. There are 8 or 9 of them. And you hardly ever see them. But they're there. I didn't talk much to them. I did talk to a couple of them.
So this Rebecca then kind of accompanied the missionaries, the elders.
She would go with the missionaries. Her and 2 missionaries.
Yeah.
They're both missionaries would go with her and just let her talk to everyone. And the missionaries would just write down their names and their address.
That approach, did you know there's a prophet in the world today? I never have heard that approach. What do you think that if we were more direct and just go up to people here in America and say, if you knew God had a prophet on the earth today, what would you do? A lot of
it's the way you say it. If you say it like you're scared, hey, got a prophet today. Or if you say it like it's real news, like it's something exciting, people will see it in your eyes. And I think it's all in the way you say it. and people get excited. There's a prophet today. You didn't know that? Look what he read. Look what he wrote. Read it. You'll love it. And people feel it. They feel it in the air, and they get excited, and they read it. And if they're ready, if they're one of the chosen people, they will accept it. If they're not, then it's just because they got that shade. And later on, they'll be taken away. It's just not their time.
It's like, I liked what he was telling today about how that he was telling people about the prophet, and they said that the man said, if you think there was a prophet, what has he said recently? What has he done for you recently? Lately. So,
we got to know what he said. I don't know.
Let me see. Yeah, I don't know about children in your life. What is your aspirations about family? How many children, and how do you expect them to relate with them?
No, the kids, it's going to be hard. I hear it's not the easiest thing in the world to raise kids.
I hear that too.
We hear that, and we see that.
It's kind of hard because, I mean, they say when you get a kid, it's like a blank disk on a computer waiting to be programmed. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing about this blank disk, after a while, it starts acting by itself.
Yeah.
It starts going on its own.
It has a life of its own.
And you can't. So it's like I see a child. This is what I see now. I'm real young, but I see it's like a program in the beginning, and you begin to work with them and program them and help them with your example, with teachings, with love. And I want to love my kids, and I also want to teach them, be strict in love, real strict on the things that need to be, real strict on obedience, things that are real important, like obedience, or mostly obedience. I think that's the first law. And then after a while, after they have around 10 years, start giving them little by little more and more power over their own decisions, and tell them I trust their decisions. One thing that Mom said to me when I was it was a year before she died. She took me by the hand, and she took me to her bed, and she said, you know what, Samuel, from this point on, anything you want to do, I'll let you do it. Anything you ask for, it's yours. Anything you want to do, it's yours. Because, and this is where she got me, I was about to ask for $5.
Said what?
I was about to ask for $5, but then she said this, because I know you'll never ask for something that you shouldn't do or shouldn't have.
How about that? Put it right back on your shoulder.
Mm-hmm. And it got
through to you.
It got through to me, and I began to make better decisions. And you know what? I was thinking about that, and I think that God does the same thing to us. If He does it to us, we should do it to our kids. There's times where He's talked to His prophets, and He said, okay, listen, Brother Jared, whatever his name is, I don't know what his name is, you do it. I trust your decision. Or He's even said to, I think it was Alma, or was it Nephi? It was Nephi. He said, listen, whatever you say to these people, whatever is bound on earth, it's bound in heaven.
That's right.
Now, why did God do that? I'm sure God could think of a better thing to do. He's God. By giving people responsibilities and letting them choose and letting them know that we trust in their decision, they begin to make a better decision. So you have to do both almost with the kids. You have to sit down there and love them and teach them and be real strict and loving based on principles that are important, not on little things. Little things are made to help up to back up the big things. And once they get old enough, little by little, starting at the age of 10, 9, I really don't know yet. But I'm sure God will help me and give them more and more responsibility. And more letting them decide what's the best. And you say, okay, what's the outcome? What if you do this? What will happen? What if you do this? What will happen? Well, you decide. If they decide something bad after bad happens, well, it happens, and they're going to learn from it. We help them learn.
Incidentally, Grandpa and Grandma did that very thing. As they got older, we explained, we'll give you more responsibility.
And does it work?
It worked. As they got older and older, we just explained that you have more privileges.
Now, everything I'm saying here, I'm sure, I know it's all theory, and it's a lot more hard to do it.
Oh, but you're speaking living oracles. It's true. Now that you have another point.
Let me see. Oh, about your journal. You've got a lot of stories in it. And do you plan to go through and enlarge on them like you did on the Rebecca story today. You gave us more background on it today than you did at the time.
Rebecca's not even in my journal. Not much.
Really?
There's a lot of stories I could expound on. I don't know how to do it.
I'll help you. I'd like to help you.
You know what I'd like to do?
What?
Do one real good of all my stories and also other spiritual thoughts and stories. Compile it in a little book and give it to Michael.
Yeah.
And also I'd keep it for myself.
Now, this thing that you said about learning what faith was, these things that you learned.
Now, some of those are in my journal.
I want us to send that to Michael, because he did write to us about his own concern about he wanted to be more full of faith. He said he felt like he didn't have enough faith. He wants more faith and be more effective with his prayers and so forth. Okay, we'll cut it off. It's been fun talking to you.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
I took a lot. I'm sorry.
Well, that was fine. We had it so that we could get your wisdom. And I like Wade want to say that you're very wise. You have a good name, and you live in it too.
Wait.
We wouldn't change one word of what took place. We might correct it grammatically, but we wouldn't change the subject matter at all. I'm delighted, I'm elated, I'm thrilled with this tape dialogue we've had today. And I want to make you a copy before you leave. But I want to find out to what extent can I share this if I treat it with respect.
You can share all of it.
Thanks.